Her hand brushed mine as she leaned in close, her perfume stirring memories I'd spent 3 years trying to bury. "I've tried to forget that night," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And I failed." Those words would change everything for me and my daughter, proving that sometimes life gives second chances when you least expect them, but only if you're brave enough to take them. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome. For those returning, thank you for your continued support. This story touched me deeply, and I know it will resonate with you too. If it does, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about love, redemption, and the unexpected paths that lead us home. My name is Daniel Parker. 3 years ago, I became a single father when my wife, Sarah, died suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition, leaving me alone with our 2-year-old daughter, Lily. The grief consumed me, but Lily needed me to be strong. Every night after putting her to bed, I'd collapse on the couch, overwhelmed by the weight of my new reality. I was a graphic designer working from home, but with childcare costs and the loss of Sarah's income, our finances were quickly becoming as broken as my heart. By the time Lily turned 4, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep working from home while trying to be both mother and father to her. The isolation was crushing me, and I worried about how it was affecting her development. She needed more than just me, she needed stability, routine, and a chance at a normal childhood. When I saw the job posting for a senior designer position at Horizon Media, one of the fastest-growing marketing firms in the city, I almost didn't apply. The salary was double what I was making as a freelancer, but I convinced myself I wasn't qualified. It was Lily who inadvertently pushed me to take the chance. She'd been drawing a picture of our family, just the two of us holding hands with a large sun overhead, and said, "Daddy, I made the sun extra big so Mommy can see us from heaven and know we're okay." That night, I updated my portfolio and submitted my application. 2 weeks later, I was shocked to receive a call inviting me for an interview. The woman on the phone introduced herself as Elena Reeves, the CEO of Horizon Media. Her voice was warm but authoritative, and she mentioned she'd personally selected my portfolio from the applicants. Something about that unsettled me. CEOs don't typically handle hiring for mid-level positions. But I was in no position to question this stroke of luck. The morning of the interview, everything that could go wrong did. Lily woke up with a fever, my regular babysitter canceled, and my car wouldn't start. By the time I'd arranged for my neighbor to watch Lily and called a rideshare, I was running 30 minutes late. I called the company to reschedule, but the receptionist insisted I come in anyway, saying Ms. Reeves had specifically requested to meet me today. I arrived at Horizon Media's gleaming downtown office building looking like I'd been through a war zone. My tie was crooked, my shoes were scuffed, and I'd spilled coffee on my white shirt. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic smile as she called up to announce my arrival. "Mr. Parker," a voice called from across the lobby. I turned to see a woman striding toward me with purpose. She was tall, with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, wearing a tailored navy suit that practically screamed authority. Her eyes were a striking gray-blue, observant, intelligent, and somehow familiar, though I was certain we'd never met. "Ms. Reeves," I said, extending my hand. "I'm so sorry for being late. My daughter is unwell," I was informed, she finished for me, her handshake firm but not aggressive. "Family comes first, Mr. Parker. Always. Now, shall we begin the interview? I'm afraid we'll have to be brief as my schedule has shifted, but I've reviewed your portfolio thoroughly." The interview was unlike any I'd experienced. Elena asked insightful questions about my design philosophy and my approach to collaborative projects, but she also wanted to know about my background, my interests outside of work, and even how I balanced my career with single parenthood. It felt more like a conversation than an interrogation, and I found myself relaxing despite my disheveled appearance. "Why Horizon?" she asked finally, studying me with an intensity that made me feel transparent. "Honestly?" I took a deep breath. "I need the stability. Working freelance with a young child has been challenging. But it's more than that. Your company's work with nonprofits and sustainable businesses aligns with what I value. I want my daughter to see that work can be both meaningful and secure. Something flickered in her expression, recognition, perhaps, or approval. She nodded slowly. Thank you for your candor, Mr. Parker. I appreciate people who value honesty. She stood, extending her hand again. We'll be in touch soon. As I rode the elevator down to the lobby, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd blown it. I'd been too honest, too vulnerable. No CEO wanted to hear about my personal struggles, they wanted confidence, competence, and clean shirts without coffee stains. I was surprised when the call came the very next day. Not only was I being offered the position, but the salary was higher than advertised, and they were willing to be flexible with my hours to accommodate Lily's schedule. It seemed too good to be true, but I wasn't in a position to question my good fortune. My first few weeks at Horizon were a whirlwind of new faces, projects, and adjusting to office life after years of working from home. Elena Reeves remained something of a mystery. She traveled frequently, and when she was in the office, she was typically sequestered in meetings. Occasionally, I'd catch her watching me from across the room during company gatherings, but she always looked away when our eyes met. It was at the company's annual charity gala, 2 months after I started, that everything changed. The event was mandatory for all employees, which meant finding an overnight sitter for Lily. I arrived alone, feeling out of place in my rented tuxedo among people who seemed far more comfortable with wealth and status than I ever could be. I was standing by the bar, nursing a glass of sparkling water and wondering how soon I could politely leave, when Elena appeared beside me. She looked stunning in a deep emerald gown that contrasted dramatically with her pale skin and dark hair. Not drinking, Mr. Parker? She asked, nodding toward my water. I'm afraid not. I drove, and I need to be clear-headed when I get home to relieve my sitter. She smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her typically serious face. Always responsible. That's admirable. Before I could respond, she was pulled away by a group of donors. Throughout the evening, however, I noticed her gaze finding me repeatedly across the room. There was something in her eyes I couldn't quite define, curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper. As the event wound down, I was waiting for the valet to bring my car when Elena approached again. Would you walk with me for a moment, Daniel? It was the first time she'd used my first name, and it caught me off guard. She led me to a small garden adjacent to the hotel's ballroom, illuminated by strings of delicate lights. We stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the gala fading into the background. Your work has been exceptional, she said finally. The Richardson campaign especially, it was brilliant. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. She turned to face me directly. Do you believe in fate, Daniel? The question was so unexpected that I laughed nervously. I'm not sure. Why do you ask? Because I do. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. 5 years ago, I was in a car accident. I was distracted, working on my phone when I should have been paying attention to the road. I swerved to avoid hitting another vehicle and crashed into a guardrail instead. I felt a strange chill run through me as she continued. A man stopped to help me. He pulled me from the car just before it caught fire, stayed with me until the ambulance came, even though he had somewhere to be. He talked to me the whole time, keeping me conscious, telling me about his pregnant wife and how excited they were to become parents. My mouth went dry as fragments of memory began to surface, a rainy night, a crumpled car, a woman with blood on her face but beautiful gray-blue eyes. That was you, she said softly. I never knew your name. You refused any recognition or reward. You just disappeared after the paramedics arrived. But I never forgot your face, or your kindness. When your application crossed my desk, with your picture attached, I knew immediately. I remembered now. It had been the night Sarah and I were heading to her parents' house to announce her pregnancy. We were running late because I'd been caught up with a deadline. I'd seen the accident happen just ahead of us and pulled over without thinking. Sarah had waited in our car, calling 911 while I went to help. "I had no idea that was you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You look different." "Less bloody, you mean?" She laughed softly. "Yes, I imagine so. Is that why you hired me?" I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. The idea that I'd been offered the job out of some sense of obligation rather than merit was disturbing. "No," she said firmly. "I reviewed your portfolio before I connected your name to my memory. Your talent is undeniable, Daniel. But yes, when I realized who you were, I made sure your application wasn't overlooked. Call it fate or coincidence or whatever you like, but I believe there are no accidents in this world." The valet approached, interrupting to let me know my car was ready. Elena stepped back, her professional demeanor returning like a shield. "Thank you for the conversation, Mr. Parker. I've kept you long enough. I'm sure your daughter is waiting." As I drove home that night, my mind was a tangle of confusion. I'd saved Elena Reeves' life and never known who she was. Now she was my boss, and there was something in the way she looked at me that suggested she saw more than just an employee she felt indebted to. The next few weeks were busy with deadlines and projects, and I saw little of Elena. When we did interact in meetings or passing in hallways, there was a new awareness between us, an unspoken acknowledgement of our connected past. Then came the night that would change everything again. It was nearly 7 in the evening, and I was one of the last people in the office, finishing a presentation due the following morning. Lily was at a friend's birthday sleepover, rare for her but a special occasion I couldn't deny her. I'd planned to work late to take advantage of the uninterrupted time. "Still here?" Elena's voice startled me. She stood in my office doorway, her suit jacket draped over one arm, looking less like the intimidating CEO and more like a tired woman at the end of a long day. "Deadline," I explained, gesturing to my screen. "And for once, I don't have to rush home. Lily's at a sleepover." Something shifted in her expression. "Have you eaten?" When I shook my head, she suggested, "There's a little Italian place 2 blocks from here. Their pasta is excellent, and they're open late. Join me?" Every instinct told me to politely decline. She was my boss. There were boundaries. But something in her invitation felt important, necessary even. "I'd like that," I heard myself say. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Away from the office, Elena was relaxed, funny even. She told me about growing up in a small town in Oregon, being the first in her family to attend college, and building her company from scratch. I shared stories about Lily, about my life with Sarah, and about navigating the challenges of being both mother and father to a young child. "She sounds wonderful," Elena said when I described Lily's recent fascination with space and her declaration that she would be an astromommy when she grew up. "She's my world," I said simply. After Sarah died, there were days when getting out of bed seemed impossible. But Lily needed breakfast, needed to be dressed, needed to be loved. She saved me, really. Elena's expression softened. "Loss changes us. After my accident, after you saved me, I reevaluated everything. I'd been so focused on success that I'd forgotten to actually live." She paused, twirling pasta around her fork thoughtfully. "Do you think about that night? The accident?" "Honestly? I didn't, not for years. It was just something that happened on an already significant day. Now, knowing it was you." I met her gaze across the table. "It feels like part of a larger story." By the time we finished dinner, the restaurant was closing around us. We'd talked for hours, moving from topic to topic with an ease that felt both strange and familiar. Standing on the sidewalk outside, neither of us seemed ready for the evening to end. "My apartment is nearby," Elena said suddenly. Would you like a nightcap? Just one drink before heading home? Every rational thought told me to decline. She was my boss. The power dynamic alone made this complicated. But there was something in her eyes, vulnerability mixed with hope, that made it impossible to say no. Her apartment was exactly what I would have expected, sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But there were unexpected touches too, bookshelves filled with well-worn novels, a throw blanket carelessly draped over the sofa, framed photographs of landscapes I suspected she'd taken herself. She poured us each a small glass of whiskey and we moved to the balcony, where the city spread out below us like a constellation of earthbound stars. It's peaceful up here, I observed. Above everything. Sometimes too peaceful, she replied, her voice quiet. Too empty. Our conversation shifted, becoming more personal, more intimate. She spoke of relationships that had failed because of her dedication to her career. I shared my fears of never finding love again, of Lily growing up without a mother's influence. Do you still wear your ring? She asked softly, noticing the pale band of skin on my left hand. I took it off 6 months ago, I admitted. It felt like time. The night air had grown chilly, and when Elena shivered, I instinctively moved closer. Our shoulders touched, and neither of us pulled away. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city below. Daniel, she said finally, turning toward me. The moonlight caught in her eyes, turning them silver. I need to tell you something. Before she could continue, my phone rang, the specific tone I'd set for Lily's friend's parents. I answered immediately, anxiety spiking. Mr. Parker? It's Susan, Emma's mom. I'm so sorry to call so late, but Lily's quite upset. She had a nightmare and she's asking for you. I've tried to calm her down, but... In the background, I could hear my daughter crying. I'll be right there, I promised, already moving toward the door. Elena didn't ask questions, just grabbed her car keys. I'll drive you. You've been drinking. The ride to Emma's house was tense with my worry. Elena drove skillfully through the late-night streets, occasionally glancing at me with concern. She'll be all right, she assured me. Children are resilient. When we arrived, I jumped out before the car had fully stopped. Susan met me at the door, apologetic and tired. Lily was sitting on the couch, her small face tear-streaked and pale. When she saw me, she launched herself into my arms. Daddy, she sobbed. I dreamed Mommy was looking for us and couldn't find us. I held her tight, murmuring reassurances, stroking her hair until her breathing steadied. When I looked up, Elena was standing in the doorway, watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read, tenderness mixed with something like longing. Thank you for driving me, I said as we prepared to leave, Lily now calm but clinging to my hand. Of course, Elena replied, then knelt to Lily's level. Hello, Lily. I'm Elena, a friend of your dad's. It's very nice to meet you. Lily regarded her seriously, then asked, Are you Daddy's boss? He says you're very smart and pretty. I felt heat rise in my cheeks as Elena's eyes flicked to mine, a smile playing at her lips. Yes, I am your dad's boss. But tonight, I'm just a friend who wanted to help. On the drive to my apartment, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, emotionally exhausted. Elena and I spoke little, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. When we arrived, she insisted on helping me carry Lily inside. After tucking my daughter into bed, I returned to find Elena examining the photographs on my living room wall, mostly of Lily, but a few included Sarah. She was beautiful, Elena said softly, indicating a picture of my late wife. She was, I agreed. Inside and out. Elena turned to face me. Thank you for tonight, Daniel. For tonight, Daniel. For dinner, for the conversation. I should go. At the door, she paused. About what I was going to tell you on the balcony. It's late, I interrupted gently. Whatever it is, it can wait for another time. She nodded, but before turning to leave, she leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my cheek. Good night, Daniel. After she left, I stood in my quiet apartment, listening to Lily's soft breathing from her bedroom, my cheek still warm from Elena's kiss. Something had shifted between us tonight, crossing a line from professional to personal. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time since Sarah's death, I felt a flutter of possibility in my chest. The next day at the office was surreal. Elena was in back-to-back meetings, and our only interaction was a brief nod as she passed my office. I wondered if she regretted the previous evening, if in the light of day she'd recognize the complications of getting personally involved with an employee. 3 days passed with minimal contact. I began to think that whatever had been building between us had been a momentary lapse in judgment on her part, now corrected. I told myself it was for the best. My priority was Lily and providing stability for her. Office romances rarely ended well, especially with such an imbalance of power. Then came the company retreat. A weekend at a mountain resort, mandatory for all department heads and senior designers. Lily would stay with my sister-in-law, who had remained close after Sarah's death. The retreat was ostensibly for team building and strategic planning, but these events typically involved equal parts work and socialization. I packed with apprehension, uncertain of how to navigate my newly complicated relationship with Elena. The mountain resort was breathtaking, rustic luxury nestled among pine trees and dramatic peaks. My room was comfortable if not lavish, with a balcony overlooking a pristine lake. The agenda for the weekend was packed with workshops, presentations, and team activities, with evenings left open for networking and relaxation. Elena opened the retreat with a keynote address about the company's vision and growth. She was every inch the confident CEO, commanding the room with her presence and insights. If she was aware of me sitting in the back row, she gave no indication. The day progressed through strategic planning sessions and creative workshops. By evening, most of the staff were ready to unwind. A bonfire had been set up near the lake, with drinks and casual conversation flowing freely. I hung back, making polite conversation with colleagues but always aware of Elena's location in my peripheral vision. She was surrounded by executives, laughing at something the CFO was saying, when our eyes met across the fire. For a brief moment, her professional mask slipped, and I saw a flash of the woman from the Italian restaurant, from her balcony. Then someone asked her a question, and she turned away. I retreated to the edge of the gathering, finding a quiet spot on a bench overlooking the water. The night was cool but not cold, the sky brilliant with stars rarely visible in the city. May I join you? Elena's voice was soft behind me. I nodded, shifting to make room. She sat closer than necessary, our shoulders almost touching. You've been avoiding me, she said without preamble. I thought perhaps you were avoiding me, I countered. She sighed, her breath visible in the cool air. I've been trying to be professional. To give us both space to think clearly. And have you? Thought clearly? She turned to face me, her expression serious in the moonlight. Yes. Too clearly, perhaps. I've analyzed every possible scenario, every potential outcome, every company policy and ethical consideration. And your conclusion? That some things matter more than professional boundaries. That connections like the one I feel with you are rare. She paused. But it's not just my decision to make. You have Lily to consider, and your position at the company, Anne. And I've been thinking too, I interrupted gently. About how life doesn't always follow the path we expect. About how sometimes, the most meaningful things begin in the most unexpected ways. Her hand found mine in the darkness, our fingers intertwining. We sat in silence, watching the stars reflect on the lake's surface, the weight of possibility between us. Tell me about that night again, she said finally. The accident. What you remember. I closed my eyes, summoning the memory. It was raining. Sarah and I were driving to her parents' house to tell them about the pregnancy. I saw the car ahead of us swerve suddenly, then hit the guardrail. I pulled over without thinking. Sarah stayed in our car, calling for help, while I ran to check on the driver. I opened my eyes, finding Elena watching me intently. The car was smoking. The driver's side door was crushed, but I managed to get the passenger door open. You were conscious but dazed, blood on your face from a cut on your forehead. I helped you out and away from the car, just before the engine caught fire. You talked to me, she prompted. What did you say? I told you to stay awake. That help was coming. I remember asking your name, but I don't think you told me. I couldn't remember it, she admitted. I had a concussion. But I remember you telling me about Sarah, about the baby you were expecting. You were so happy, so excited to become a father. I said softly. You saved my life that night, Daniel. Not just by pulling me from the car, but by giving me something to focus on besides the pain and fear. Your joy about becoming a father, it reminded me that life is about more than just work and success. She shifted closer, her voice dropping. After the accident, I made changes. I started taking actual vacations. I reconnected with old friends. I even tried dating, though nothing ever seemed to click. She paused. But I never forgot you. The kind stranger who talked about his wife with such love, who was so excited about fatherhood. And now here we are, I said, the irony not lost on me. 5 years later. Here we are, she echoed. The sounds of the party by the fire had dimmed, most of the staff having returned to their rooms or moved to the resort's bar. We were effectively alone, surrounded by darkness and stars. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, she admitted. This is complicated, Daniel. I'm your boss. There are policies about these things. I could transfer to another department, I suggested. Or find another job, if necessary. She shook her head firmly. No. Your work is too valuable, and you need the stability for Lily. She hesitated. There might be another way. I've been considering restructuring the creative department, creating a position that would report to the board rather than directly to me. You've thought about this a lot, I observed, surprised. More than I should admit, she said with a small smile. But there's something else to consider, something more important than corporate hierarchy. What's that? Lily, she said simply. She's your priority, as she should be. Whatever happens between us affects her too. The fact that her first concern was for my daughter touched me deeply. She liked you, you know. She asked about you the next day. Did she? Elena's face brightened. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're my boss and you helped drive us home when she was upset. I paused. And that I thought you were nice. Just nice, she teased. Well, I left out the part about thinking you're incredibly intelligent, surprisingly funny, and impossibly beautiful, I admitted. That seemed a bit much for a 5-year-old. She laughed, the sound bright in the quiet night. Then, with a seriousness that took my breath away, she reached up to touch my face. Daniel, I've tried to forget that night at my apartment. The way we talked, how easy it was, how right it felt. I've tried to be practical and professional and logical. Her voice softened. And I've failed completely. I covered her hand with mine, turning to press a kiss to her palm. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. When our lips finally met, it felt like completion of a circle begun 5 years ago on a rainy night. Her kiss was tentative at first, then deepening as I pulled her closer. When we broke apart, her eyes were shining in the moonlight. We'll figure this out, I promised. The work situation, introducing you to Lily properly, all of it. Step by step. She nodded, resting her forehead against mine. I've waited 5 years to find you again. I can be patient a little longer." The remainder of the retreat passed in a blur of stolen moments and meaningful glances amid the professional proceedings. By Sunday afternoon, as we prepared to return to the city, Elena and I had agreed to move forward cautiously, prioritizing both professional propriety and Lily's well-being. The weeks that followed brought challenges and adjustments. Elena announced a restructuring of the creative department, elevating me to creative director, reporting to the board rather than directly to her. The promotion raised a few eyebrows, but my work record supported the advancement. More delicate was introducing Elena into Lily's life. We began with casual, brief encounters, Elena stopping by my office when Lily visited after school, joining us for ice cream in the park one Saturday. My daughter was initially shy but warmed quickly to Elena's genuine interest in her stories and questions. "Does Ms. Elena like space too?" Lily asked one evening after Elena had helped her identify constellations during an impromptu stargazing session on our apartment balcony. "I think she does," I replied carefully. "Would you like it if she came with us to the planetarium next weekend?" Lily considered this seriously. "Yes," she decided. "She explains things good. Like a teacher but not boring." I laughed. "I'll tell her you said so." Well, maybe not the boring teacher part. As summer turned to fall, Elena became a regular presence in our lives. She was careful never to overstep, always deferring to my parenting decisions while offering support and companionship to both Lily and me. For her part, Lily blossomed under the additional attention, particularly from a strong female figure who took her interests seriously. It was Lily who first verbalized what was happening, with the straightforward clarity of childhood. "Daddy," she announced one evening as I tucked her in, "I think Ms. Elena is your girlfriend." I tried not to show my surprise. "What makes you say that?" "Because you look at her like Uncle Tom looks at Aunt Jenny. And because you're happier when she's here." She paused, considering. "And because I saw you kissing in the kitchen when you thought I was watching TV." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Would it be okay with you if she was my girlfriend?" Lily thought for a moment. "Does that mean she'll be here more?" "Probably, yes." "Will she still help me with my space drawings and tell me stories about when she was little?" "I'm sure she will." Lily nodded decisively. "Then it's okay." Her expression turned serious. "But mommy is still my mommy, even if she's in heaven." I gathered her into a tight hug, my throat thick with emotion. "Always, sweetheart. Nothing will ever change that." When I shared this conversation with Elena later that night, she had tears in her eyes. "She's extraordinary, Daniel. So wise for someone so young." "She is," I agreed. "And she's right about something else too." "What's that?" "I am happier when you're here." As Christmas approached, our relationship deepened. Elena had become an integral part of our little family, spending most weekends and several evenings each week at our apartment. We developed routines and traditions: Sunday morning pancakes, Wednesday night board games, bedtime stories with Lily taking turns to choose who would read. Elena maintained her own apartment, but it had become more of a storage space than a home. Most of her essential belongings had gradually migrated to our place, filling the empty spaces Sarah had left behind, not replacing her memory, but creating something new alongside it. On Christmas Eve, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, vibrating with excitement about Santa's imminent arrival, Elena and I sat on the couch surrounded by the soft glow of tree lights. We'd spent the evening assembling a ridiculously complicated dollhouse and wrapping presents, and now enjoyed a moment of peace with glasses of wine. "I have something for you," Elena said, pulling a small box from her pocket. "I wanted to give it to you privately, before tomorrow's excitement." Inside the box was a key on a simple silver keychain shaped like a star. I looked at her questioningly. "It's to my apartment," she explained. "Which I'm keeping for now, but I thought perhaps it could become something else. An office space for your freelance projects, or maybe a studio for Lily's art when she's older." The implication was clear, she was ready to make our living arrangement official. I love the idea, I said, pulling her close. And I have something for you too. My gift was a photo album I'd spent weeks assembling, pictures of Lily's life from birth to present, with empty pages at the back labeled, Our Future Adventures. I want you in those empty pages, I told her as she traced the words with her finger. In all the adventures to come. I want that too, she whispered, her eyes shining. We moved in together officially after the new year, a transition that seemed almost anticlimactic given how thoroughly our lives had already merged. The company's board had been informed of our relationship months earlier, and with the reporting structure changed, there had been minimal professional fallout. Spring brought Lily's 6th birthday and with it, a party at the planetarium Elena had arranged through her connections. Watching my daughter's face illuminate with wonder as stars projected across the dome above, Elena's hand warm in mine, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't thought possible after Sarah's death. Later that night, after Lily had crashed from her sugar high and fallen asleep surrounded by new space-themed toys, Elena and I sat on the balcony of what was now truly our home. Thank you for today, I said, pulling her close. It was perfect. She deserves perfect days, Elena replied simply. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights below. It had been nearly a year since that night at the company gala when Elena had revealed our connected past, and in that time, we'd built something I never expected to find again, a family. I've been thinking, Elena said finally, about that night 5 years ago. The accident. What about it? If you hadn't stopped to help me, if Sarah hadn't been so understanding about the delay, if any small detail had been different. She turned to face me. I believe things happen for a reason, Daniel. That night connected us in ways neither of us could have imagined. It did, I agreed. Though I wish the connection hadn't come with so much pain for both of us. She nodded, understanding that I was thinking of Sarah. Loss shaped us. But it didn't define us. No, I said softly. We defined ourselves. And now we're defining something new together. Elena shifted, suddenly looking nervous. Speaking of defining something new. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I had a whole speech planned, but now words seem inadequate. She opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band. This isn't a traditional proposal, because we're not a traditional couple. We've built our relationship backwards, family first, then partnership. But I want to make it official, for us and for Lily. Her voice grew husky with emotion. I'm not trying to replace Sarah. I know her place in your heart and in Lily's life is permanent and precious. But I'm asking if there's room for me too, officially and forever. I took the ring, turning it in my fingers, emotion making it difficult to speak. There has always been room for you, I said finally. From that rainy night when our paths first crossed, through all the years in between, to this moment right now. As if the universe knew we needed to find each other again. I slipped the ring onto my finger, a perfect fit. Yes, I said simply. Yes to forever with you. When we told Lily the next morning, her reaction was characteristically practical. Does this mean Ms. Elena will be my stepmom? It does, I confirmed. How do you feel about that? She considered this seriously. Will I have to call her mom? Elena knelt to Lily's level. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable, sweetheart. Elena is perfect, or Ms. Elena if you prefer. Your mom will always be your mom. Lily nodded, satisfied. Okay. But if you're getting married, can I wear a space dress at the wedding? With stars on it? Elena laughed, pulling her into a hug. Absolutely. The sparkliest space dress we can find. We married in the fall, a small ceremony in the botanical gardens where Lily could run free among the flowers. She wore her promised space dress, midnight blue with silver stars and a gossamer overlay that floated around her as she danced. Elena was radiant in a simple ivory gown, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. During the ceremony, I placed a framed photograph of Sarah on a small table beside us, acknowledging her presence in our hearts and her blessing on this new chapter. Elena had suggested it, understanding that love doesn't diminish when shared, it multiplies. Our vows were simple but profound. We promised to honor our past while building our future, to cherish the unexpected paths that had led us to each other, and to remember always that family comes in many forms but is always built on love. At the reception, Elena surprised me by unveiling a foundation she'd established in Sarah's name, dedicated to researching the heart condition that had taken her life so suddenly. It was her way of ensuring Sarah's legacy continued, and of showing Lily that her mother's life had meaning beyond its too brief span. As we danced under strings of lights in the garden, Elena whispered, "5 years ago, a stranger pulled me from a burning car and saved my life. 3 years ago, that same stranger submitted a job application that crossed my desk. 1 year ago, I whispered to him after a meeting, I've tried to forget that night and I failed." She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the lights above. "I'm so glad I failed, Daniel. So grateful that some memories refuse to fade, that some connections can't be broken, that some stories are meant to continue even when we think they're finished." Over her shoulder, I could see Lily dancing with my brother, her space dress twinkling like her namesake flower under the lights. She caught my eye and waved, her smile bright with childish joy and the security of being deeply loved. "Some endings are really beginnings," I replied, pulling Elena closer. "We just have to be brave enough to turn the page." And so we did, page by page, day by day, building our life together, not perfect, but perfectly ours. A CEO, a designer, and a little girl who loved the stars, connected by fate, choice, and the enduring power of second chances. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories of unexpected love, redemption, and the beautiful ways life sometimes brings us exactly what we need, even when it comes through the most surprising paths. Remember that every ending has the potential to be a beginning, you just need the courage to turn the page. Would you like me to explain or break down any aspects of this story?